Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 12 team selection and I've got 2 free transfers to use and quite a few positions where I could use them. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So before we look at my team for Game Week 12, just a quick review of Game Week 11. And I did get a green arrow, 31 points. And I'm absolutely delighted with that because it was a ridiculous week. I've seen some active managers with a fully active team getting 1 point from their entire 11. I've seen other managers such as from FPL Blackbox getting 11 points, which is an average of 1 point per player. It was just one of those weeks where it all went terribly, terribly wrong. And so to come away with a green arrow and 31 points feels like a pretty good week. But what I would say, and you've probably heard a lot of people saying this, it's a good week to have a bad week. And what we mean by that is the difference between an absolutely terrible week, which let's ignore like the 1 point, is let's say about 10 to 15 points is a terrible week, and a very good week, which is something around mine, 30 to 35 points, there's only about 20 points difference between those. In some other weeks in FPL, a bad week might be 60 points, and a good week might be 140 points. So, whilst the average score was very low in Game Week 11, the difference between a good and bad week wasn't that high. The variance wasn't that high between the two. So, I actually think it doesn't really matter. The damage done if you had a bad week probably wasn't that high, and the gain that you got from having a good week, again, probably wasn't that high either. All of my players blanked, including some 0 and 1 pointers, apart from Trippier and Bowen. And the reason that I am so delighted about this, if you watched my content last week, is at various points I had Trippier on the bench, and at various points I had Bowen on the bench, because I had a bit of a benching headache. So I actually got the benching decision pretty much spot on. I know you can see Gehi there with a 5-pointer. However, I wasn't deciding between Cash, Tsimikas and Gehi. It was between Trippier and Gehi. So I was always going to bench some points there, but I did choose the correct player there. And for most of the week, I actually had Bowen on the bench and I was starting SAKA and MADDISON. But at the last second, I decided, listen, Newcastle were brilliant at home. SAKA's not very good away. Therefore, I will bench SAKA. And that played out perfectly because SAKA just didn't get many chances to create or score goals. And Newcastle defended very, very well for large spells of that game. So I was really happy with all of the decisions. 2 returns, believe it or not, was enough for a green arrow. Haaland and Salah both blanking. Obviously, I think Haaland owners are probably feeling very, very unlucky in a 6-1 win that Haaland didn't get anything and came off at half-time. But equally, I had Salah and Darwin, who between them missed some huge chances. I mean, that is what Darwin does. But I think there was a lot of luck for some people in certain areas, then a lot of poor luck in other areas. It was just one of those weeks. But generally, very happy to not be absolutely battered by Haaland against Bournemouth at home in Game Week 11. Let's now take a look at the team for Game Week 12. So looking ahead to Game Week 12 and pretending that Game Week 11 never happened, I do have 2 free transfers and 0 in the bank. So the plan at the moment, because there is an international break between Game Week 12 and Game Week 13, I'm currently planning on just using one of those free transfers and rolling the second one into the international break, because Game Week 13 is already a game week where there are teams with a lot of tough fixtures, especially from the teams that we own players from already. And on top of that, anything can happen in an international break. And I have come out of international breaks before with like 3 or 4 flagged players. So when my team is already very strong, and I already have a very strong bench, as you can see here, it feels crazy to force 2 free transfers just for the sake of it. So at the moment, the plan is to just use one of them and then roll the second one. And I would advise, if you can get away with it, trying to get into the international break with 2 free transfers is probably a wise play here. The team is currently rated at 89%, and I predicted to get 62.4 points in Game Week 12, which is pretty high. It's been higher than the recent few game weeks as well. So starting with the goalkeepers, Areola and Turner, I don't really like this situation, right? Turner lost his place in Game Week 11, and speaking to some Forest fans, he's probably lost his place permanently, or at least for the foreseeable future. So now I'm down to just having one goalkeeper. There'll be no rotation. To be honest, maybe I wasn't that keen on the rotation anyway, because the fixtures coming up aren't that great for Forest, and unless they're playing at home, they're not the best defence. That being said, it was nice to have the option when Areola has a tough fixture to play another goalkeeper. I think this does mean if you've got 2 free transfers and not a great deal to use those transfers on, you could downgrade Turner to like Strakosha, who has a chance of getting that #1 spot at some point. And obviously, if Flecken is out at any point, he can play too. So that's an option. If you don't want to burn a transfer and you've got nothing really to use it on, downgrade Turner, get a little bit of money in the bank, and also have a potential option in Strakosha moving forward. That's an option for me if I decide I don't want to use a transfer on any of my outfield players. Then moving on to Areola. Areola makes lots of saves. I don't think West Ham are a bad team, and the fixtures coming up are pretty good. But West Ham are currently sat at 15th for expected goals conceded. So they are one of the worst defences in the league this season. And yes, they haven't had ideal fixtures to open, but they are just conceding so many chances. And it's great when they concede a lot of shots because that means Areola can get a lot of saves, but they're conceding a lot of big chances too. So I'm looking at this West Ham defence and it doesn't inspire me. And every single week I am predicting West Ham to concede. So that doesn't feel ideal, but do I want to use a transfer on the goalkeeper spot? It may be worth it, but there aren't tons of options. A Brentford goalkeeper, whether that be Flecken or Strakosha, whoever is the number ones, but at the moment that is Flecken, assuming he plays, it could be worth doing that because they have the double game week in game week 20 and the fixtures coming up aren't terrible from game week 14 onwards. Outside of that, I think arguably the best goalkeeper that you could own at the moment is Johnston because I think the Crystal Palace defence are pretty good. Johnston makes a lot of saves, and because Palace don't score tons of goals, Johnston seems to be pretty good for bonus points. But from around game week 15 onwards, the fixtures for Crystal Palace really aren't ideal. So there just aren't that many keepers that inspire me that much. So Areola for the time being stays. I can't see myself making a goalkeeper transfer, at least while these nice fixtures are coming up for West Ham. But let's say around game week 16, 17, over this spell, Areola doesn't keep any clean sheets, or he keeps one, but he's not great for bonus points, isn't making many saves. It could well be at some point, if I have a free transfer to use, that I do change the goalkeeper spot. But for now, Areola is fine. Nottingham Forest at home isn't a terrible fixture. Fingers crossed he finally gets a clean sheet for us. The defence I am very, very happy with this week. We'll start with Taylor. Obviously, Taylor is the only one this week who isn't in contention to start for me. Arsenal away, not a great fixture. I would love to have Lascelles in that spot there. And if I had any money in the bank and I had the potential to move Taylor to a Lascelles, that may well be what I would do with my one free transfer because Botman looks like he's going to be out long term, at least at the time of me recording this, and Lascelles will continue to start in his absence, and the fixtures coming up aren't that terrible for Newcastle, and the longer that Botman is out, and I think it will be 2024 at the earliest from what I've seen that Botman will be back, Lascelles is just insane value. So I think if you can go from like a Taylor to a Lascelles, it may well be worth doing that, but I can't do that in one move. So for the time being, Taylor stays. I have Trippier in the starting 11 as well. The man just keeps saving me week upon week and getting points. And it feels like a position where if you don't have Trippier, there always seems to be a priority transfer where Trippier isn't a priority. You move for a Saka one week, or maybe you move out your forward spots. You wanted an Ollie Watkins a couple of weeks ago, and every week it feels like there is a priority to bring in another attacker instead of Trippier. And the other reason for that is in a lot of those cases, it's possible in one move. Like if you did a Son to a Saka, or you did like a Darwin to a Watkins, or whatever it may be. Whereas with Kieran Trippier, it's always going to be a minimum of 2 moves to move the money into your defence. So a lot of people are missing out on the Trippier points. And I can guarantee once again, despite it being a good fixture this week, that if you don't own him, he's probably not a priority transfer. So he's a player where I envisioned myself selling him around this period to free up funds to move elsewhere. But I can't see myself selling him for the foreseeable future now. I mean, Newcastle are just so good. It doesn't matter which defenders they play. They just keep clean sheets. He's so good for bonus points, and he continues to put up good attacking data in every game. And from about game week 16, 17 onwards, Newcastle's fixtures are super strong. So if you can get through this spell here where the fixtures aren't ideal, and Kieran Trippier is still picking up the odd clean sheet bonus points and maybe the odd attacking return as well, I think you're going to be in a really good position to hold him from game week 17 onwards. So for me, Kieran Trippier is going to be staying in my team. I can't see myself selling him for the foreseeable future, and I'm really, really happy to have him. The only slight concern is he has played a lot of minutes recently, and also with Burn being out, there is a chance that Livramento plays right back and Trippier plays left back. If we see a real reduction in his bonus points potential or his attacking threat when he's playing at left back, then we may need to reconsider and potentially sell him for the likes of a Livramento or a Lascelles. But for the time being, he stays. He is a genuine captaincy option this week, but I just think there are some slightly safer options with home fixtures, and as a result, I won't be going there. The other 3 defenders, I do have a bit of a benching headache. I need to bench one of Cash, Gahey, or Tsimikas. They've all got home fixtures. I don't think any of them are bankers for clean sheet. I think Fulham are pretty decent going forward. Everton have actually been very impressive going forward this season when you look at underlying data. And Brentford are the same, right? And Mbeumo's just been scoring goals for fun. And so I don't think any of these are bankers for clean sheets. And when we look at attacking threat, Matty Cash has the greatest attacking threat. But in the recent games, it's dropped off a little bit. And obviously, he's a slight injury doubt. But he has been back in full training. So I expect him to start. But will he get 90 minutes? I don't know. I would assume so because it was only a shoulder injury, so it shouldn't affect his fitness running-wise. So I think Cash should still be fine. I actually think potentially the most difficult fixture here on paper may be Everton, if you're looking at underlying data, but Brentford are obviously very good too, especially in these big games. The reason that Tsimikas is currently the one that's sat on the bench for me is just due to the fact that he is the biggest rotation risk. So if one of these three are to be benched, I would expect it to be Tsimikas, but this will largely depend on what are his minutes like on Thursday. So I'm recording this on Thursday morning for a Thursday sort of lunchtime upload. If in Europe, Tsimikas starts on the bench, I would probably want to start him. And if he plays like 50 or 60 minutes and then comes off and looks really good, again, I would probably want to start him because if I am confident that Tsimikas starts, I think just due to the attacking threat that he carries above Aguehi, he may be a slightly better option. So I guess to put that together, Trippier and Cash are almost definitely going to be starting for me. I'll be benching Taylor. It really probably is between Aguehi and Tsimikas. I need to bench one of them. I think Tsimikas is the slightly better option if I know that both are going to start. But if there are any doubts, I'll just start the Crystal Palace man because I know for a fact that he's going to start, whereas Tsimikas, there are some doubts. Let me know down below what you think in the comments about that. Who would you bench from the defence? Let's move on to the midfield. So moving on to the midfield, and I'm currently sat here with two flags in my team, which isn't ideal, but I have a feeling that both could be available, and I wouldn't mind taking out one of them anyway, but we'll discuss that in a second. I'll start with Mohamed Salah. Not going to be removing him, of course, and he does currently have the armband, and that's kind of by default again, and it seems to be that way in a lot of game weeks where I just don't see another standout option. He is so consistent, not only with the data that he puts up, but the output as well. He's a 90-minute man. He's on penalties. There's very little to dislike about him. And Brentford are a team that won't just sit back the entire game. I'm not necessarily saying that they're like a gun-ho team that are going to go through and completely attack Liverpool and leave a massive amount of space behind. And it's a perfect fixture for Salah. However, they aren't a team that will just sit back and defend very, very deep, which Salah tends to struggle against. So I think this is an okay fixture for him. And again, by default, I don't think there are many other options that I would prefer. So he is going to get the armband for this week. Bowen, I think arguably up there with some of the best possible transfers in this week. So a lot of people are asking me, if you don't have Bowen, is he worth bringing in? I think absolutely. He's been fantastic this season. His output's been good. His non-penalty expected goals, very, very strong. And in a similar way to like Salah and Mbeumo, Fernandes, all of these players that pick up points in the last minutes, Bowen can do that because he's always on the pitch. And it's such a massive advantage that people just don't consider that if a player comes off on 70 minutes, they're losing 25 minutes every game to pick up returns. And if you actually have a look at the data, most teams get most of their chances in the final third of the game. So if a player comes off for that final third, it is a real kicker because that's often when most of the goals are scored. So Bowen, for that reason alone, is amazing. But yeah, on top of that, the data is very strong. The fixtures are there as well. So Bowen is absolutely a player that I'll be looking to bring in if you don't currently own him. I am very, very happy to have him this week. And then Son is another player that I still think is a good buy. Regardless of what happens with Maddison, regardless of the defensive injuries, Son will continue to get chances in this Postecoglou team. And he will take them because he's one of the, if not the best finishers in world football. So I absolutely love him. I will not be transferring him out. I would not take him out for an Arsenal mid. I would not take him out for anyone. For me, Son is up there in the top 3 or 4 assets, potentially even the top 2 assets in FPL. So those 3 players, Salah, Bowen and Son, will absolutely be staying. Ideally, Saka would be staying, right? I only just brought Saka in. Wasn't fantastic in game week 10. Then I benched him in game week 11. Of course, I want him for this period now where Arsenal's fixtures are pretty good. So even if Saka isn't available for 12, I think I may well just bench him anyway. So I don't think I really need to discuss Saka. He wasn't a captaincy option for me anyway, just because Arsenal haven't quite clicked. He is still a bit of a doubt, even if he didn't pick up that knock in Europe. Saka just doesn't look quite at it at the moment. That doesn't mean I think he's a bad option. I just don't quite trust him for the armband. So, yeah, it's not really going to change. Unless he's out long term, which doesn't look likely based on the footage that we saw, I'll either start Saka or keep him, put him on the bench. Then you can see I've got Alvarez on the bench. I would love to play Alvarez against Chelsea. So, Saka being out isn't a huge issue for me. I'll keep him anyway. The player that I am much more likely to sell is James Maddison, just because the fixtures over the next four Spurs really aren't ideal. And I do think with the injuries that they've got, I do expect that to also affect Spurs going forward as well. Romero and Van de Ven are incredibly important for their build-up play. And yes, Eric Dyer can fill in relatively well, but I don't think that's ideal for them. Obviously, Udogie also got suspended too. And on top of that, Pedro Porro wasn't seen in training. So I just think over the next few, Spurs might struggle a little bit. And whilst I don't want to sell Son, do I want a double up from the Spurs attack? Not ideally. So at the moment, even if Maddison is fit for Game Week 12, he is currently my planned transfer out. Of course, if he is 100% confirmed fit, I may reconsider. But I just look at my team at the moment. Yes, I could do like a Turner downgrade, or I could maybe make a defensive transfer if I don't think Tsimikas is going to be a good option long term, or something like that. But I feel like there are so many good midfielders at the moment with the next 4 fixtures anyway. I do think there are players with higher upside outside of Maddison. And in Game Week 14 anyway, I am going to want to move to Mbeumo, and that's probably the spot to do it. So if I'm going to sell Maddison in a couple of weeks for Mbeumo anyway, I can either move that transfer forward and do that now, or take a 2-week punt with slightly better fixtures. So if we just move over to my watch list to kind of discuss what that looks like, you can see also my defenders and forwards that I'm looking at the moment, but I don't really plan on making defender transfers or forward transfers at the moment because there aren't many that I want to own outside of an Arsenal defender, and I can't get there in one move anyway. So it probably will be a midfield transfer, and it probably will be Maddison. Now, this is a really tricky one for me because I know for a fact I want Mbeumo from 14 onward because 14, 15 and 16, there's 3 game weeks in the space of a week, and those 3 game weeks for Mbeumo look brilliant. Not only do I know for a fact that he'll start all 3 and probably play 90 minutes in all 3, they are 3 exceptionally strong fixtures, and Mbeumo is one of the best midfield assets in the game. So I know I want Mbeumo in 14. Do I just make the move this week? Yes, he's got Liverpool and then Arsenal. They are not 2 good fixtures, and I don't expect much from him in those 2, but it does save me a transfer. I still expect Brentford to get chances, and if they do, it will be Mbeumo, and he's on penalties and set pieces. So Mbeumo will just continue to pick up returns. I don't think he's fixture-proof, personally. I don't think any player is completely fixture-proof, but he is a player that you still expect to pick up returns regardless of the difficulty of the fixtures. So I suppose that is, by definition, slightly fixture-proof. So maybe I just move that forward, but then I see 4 or potentially 5 other options with better fixtures over the next 2, with higher upside, where I could just go for a 2-week punt and then move them to Mbeumo in Game Week 14. And I know, again, that is using an extra transfer, and usually I would say maybe just try and save the transfer, but when I look ahead to future game weeks, of course anything could happen. I could get injury, suspensions, which may force my hand, but I don't see many places or times across the next 2 or 3 game weeks that I desperately need a transfer. The only times when I can see myself needing transfers is in Game Week 16 to get Haaland back, but across the next few, my team's looking so strong. So I wonder, is it the slightly more aggressive plays go for a 2-week punt with better fixtures? So the 4 or 5 players that I'm considering is Mitoma, Eze, Martinelli, Kudus, and Trossard. I'll start with Trossard. I've put a question mark just because I think he'll start as the 9 on the weekend based on the fact that at the time of me recording this, Nketiah still hasn't been in training. Trossard looked very, very good against Sevilla, and Havertz just seems to be preferred in midfield and also just hasn't looked very good. So I think it'll be Trossard, but do I know that post-international break, Nketiah won't come back and start? I don't. So whilst I think he's good for 12, I don't know that he's as good for 13, and I really do want a 2-week punt. So Trossard's probably ruled out for that reason. The next option that I'm less keen on is Kudus. Now, the main reason for this is that I have Bowen, and I've said this before that Kudus and Bowen are 2 different players. I shouldn't not go for Kudus just because I've got Bowen, but at the same time, I don't know how much I back the West Ham attack. And whilst Bowen's individual data is very good, thus far, Kudus' data hasn't been incredible. And whilst I do think he's a good asset, it is a big punt to take to have double West Ham attack for the next 2 games, especially when I don't think their fixture in Game Week 12 is that good. I think Nottingham Forest are okay defensively. So for that reason, I've probably ruled out Kudus as well. So for me, it is Mitoma, Eze, or Martinelli. The thing that I love about Eze, and I know some people will say he's a troll, Palace don't score many goals, but his data is better than Mitoma and Martinelli this season. And on top of that, Eze is on every set piece, every corner, and he's on penalties. So in 2 weeks, if I'm trying to increase the amount of luck that I can get and increase the amount of potential points that I can get as well, Eze being on all set pieces and penalties and being a 90-minute man, assuming that he's now fit, I'm just increasing my chance of getting a haul there. I'm just increasing my routes to points. My concern with Eze is that I don't think the fixtures are great over the next 2. It's Everton at home, and I've said now, Everton are a good defence and a good attack this league. this season. They've been one of the top defences in the league, genuinely. They're like 5th or 6th for expected goals conceded. So I don't really like that fixture. And then whilst it is Luton in game week 13, it's Luton away. So when I look at Eze there, I'm like, the two fixtures I don't think are that ideal. But again, he's on pens. Palace will try and score goals, and they probably will grab a few. And if they do, I'm expecting Eze to be involved in them. So I don't think the fixtures put me off that much, but it does make me think, is someone like a Mitoma or Martinelli better? Because I do prefer the fixtures. But even for Mitoma, I don't think the fixture in game week 13 is ideal. Yes, Sheffield United at home is great, but in 13, if I'm expecting less goals in that one, maybe it'll even out. I do think that Mitoma and Martinelli have the greatest open play goal threat. So if you were to say two of these options we're going to get more goals from open play or more assists, I think Mitoma and Martinelli are more likely to do that than Eze. But I don't really care if it's from open play or from a penalty or from a corner. Eze's just got so many more routes to points. The reason I like Martinelli and Mitoma is the fixture this week is just so much better. Sheffield United at home and Burnley at home are two of the best fixtures that you can possibly get. And when I go through and predict the results for this week, I predicted Crystal Palace and Everton at like 1-1, if I'm predicting just from a footballing perspective. And I predicted Brighton to win 3-0 and Arsenal to win 4-0. So if I'm predicting there to be tons more goals in the Brighton game and the Arsenal game than the Palace game, I know it's not just game week 12, it's also game week 13. But I am probably thinking that Martinelli and Mitoma maybe have the highest ceiling as a result. So these are some of the things that are going through my mind at the moment. Like I said, unlikely to be Kudus, unlikely to be Trossard. I'm currently leaning away from just moving for Mbeumo now, just because I don't think his upside is that high over the next two. And I think some of these other players have the potential to go so nuclear that it may well still be worth making the extra transfer to move to Mbeumo. So to recap that, it's probably between Mitoma, Eze and Martinelli. Eze, I think, is the better asset because he has so many more routes to points and he has the better data. But I think fixtures-wise, I prefer Mitoma and Martinelli. So let me know down below what you think of that. Just to go back to my team, Son, Salah, Bowen and Saka unlikely to be sold. Unless Saka is confirmed as being out long-term, which I just don't think will be the case, I will keep him regardless and I may well just bench him for Alvarez. Maddison's likely to be the one that is sold. And it's between those 3 or 4 options that I just discussed there. I would love to have some of your feedback down below. Let me know which midfielder you would move for. So moving on to the forwards, not a massive amount to discuss here. Ollie Watkins is a great option this week. I'm definitely not selling Watkins at the moment. His data still continues to be strong. He's just been maybe a little bit unlucky not to return in the last couple of game weeks. And I think at home against Fulham, Watkins is one of the better captaincy options this week. I would say arguably second or third best in my team. And I will definitely consider captaining him. I just think the lack of penalties for me and the fact that he's not on any set pieces or anything like that, the only routes to points that he has is from open play. Whereas obviously Salah has the pens, takes the odd corner and free kick, but less likely it'll probably be Salah or probably Trent or Soberslide. But I just think with Salah, he's got more routes to points, and for that reason, I slightly prefer Salah. But I do think that Watkins is a fantastic captaincy shout if you don't own Salah or you just want to go a little bit different. Then I've got Darwin and Alvarez. Based on how many minutes Darwin gets in Europe on Thursday, if he gets like 90 minutes, doesn't look great, looks a bit fatigued towards the end, there is a chance that I just start Alvarez if I think there's a chance Darwin gets benched. But Darwin is playing very, very well at the moment. I know he didn't convert on those chances against Luton, but I think if you're Jurgen Klopp, he's pressing very well from the front. He's getting the chances to score goals. Before the Luton game, he was converting as well. And I just think that he is first choice number 9 for Liverpool at the moment. So I would still expect Darwin to start, probably even if he does get decent minutes in Europe. But let's see how many minutes he gets, and I'll reassess that closer to the deadline. And then Alvarez, I would love to get into the starting 11, but at the moment it's difficult because the 7 attackers that I have at the moment, let's say that I move Maddison to someone else with a good fixture this week, they all have better fixtures this week than Alvarez. So whilst I do think Chelsea away is a fine fixture, I would find it difficult to bench any of my other attackers ahead of him. So with that in mind, one possible transfer, if, let's say, Maddison and Saka are both fit for this week and I don't want to sell them, one possible transfer is Alvarez to Archer. Because over the next few weeks, Alvarez is sat on my bench a hell of a lot. And I know for a fact in game week 16, when Haaland has Luton, I want to move back to Haaland. Alvarez to Archer would free up something like 2 million in the bank, or 2.6 million, I think it is, in the bank for me, to then have money free to make the move back to Haaland in 16 a little bit easier. And if I'm not going to play Alvarez much over the coming game weeks anyway, and Archer is still getting minutes, and he scored recently, it's not a terrible transfer, and it does free up some funds for me and make that move back a little bit easier. I just think that Maddison to another midfielder with better fixtures might be the slightly higher upside play. So those are the possible transfers. Just to recap then, I think it's unlikely I make a defensive transfer, unless I really don't want to have Tsimikas any longer. Unlikely I sell Salah. It will probably be Maddison to one of Mitoma, as a maybe Mbeumo or Martinelli. And then if I don't want to make any of those midfield transfers, there is a chance that I do Alvarez down to Archer just to give me the money to maybe move back to Haaland, or probably move back to Haaland in Game Week 16. So that's the team. Likely to just use one of my free transfers this week, roll the second into the international break. The only thing just to finish on now is my AI recommended transfers according to Fantasy Football Hub. So if we move over to Fantasy Football Hub and take a look at those, I thought this was quite interesting. They recommend that I sell Salah for Gordon, who I've not really considered, but to be honest, it's mainly just because if I'm going to bring in a player, because he's got a great fixture this week, but then it's not the best fixture in Game Week 13. I just think if I'm going to bring in a player with only one good fixture, I might as well just go for Mbeumo, who I know I'm going to want long term. So that's the only real reason I haven't considered Gordon. But they recommend Salah to Gordon and then Alvarez to Haaland. Now, this isn't because Salah's predicted points are low. It's because Haaland's are so high, and they actually don't really like Alvarez. So the Hub algorithm has dropped Alvarez's projections down a little bit based on the fact that he hasn't done that well recently, and his data hasn't been that strong either. So they think the upgrade in general is worth it to get from Salah to Haaland and also removing Alvarez in the meantime. So there is no chance in how I do this, but it is interesting that they've dropped Alvarez down the pecking order, which may make you think that actually Alvarez to Archer may be a move that is worth making, because Alvarez over the coming game weeks maybe isn't the best option anyway. So those are the AI recommended transfers. If you want to see what your AI recommended transfers are, probably less wacky than this, there is a link down below in the description. You can currently get up to 30% off from Fantasy Football Hub if you use the link in the description too. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 12 team selection. Let me know what you think of the team down below, and let me know what transfers you would make if you were in my position. If you have enjoyed today's video, please do smash a like. Let's aim for 2,000 likes on the video, and make sure to subscribe as well. I do really appreciate the support. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.